Hello, today I am giving my review of the book The Rich Girl by R.L. Stine. This is the 44th book in the original Fear Street series, and this video is actually a redo. I filmed this video a while back and accidentally deleted it somewhere along the way. When I film videos, I film them consisting of multiple clips and then I put them together, and I had been filming a lot, and some days I would film more than one video. Once I have all the clips edited and saved as one video, and then I export them from iMovie, I delete the old clips because they're no longer needed. And I guess I must have deleted my clips for the Rich Girl review, thinking they were just a part of another video. So I realized at one point that I had done that. It wasn't like, oh, I think I just deleted it. It was more of, oh, I guess I deleted it at one point, like I didn't even notice right away, which was a little disappointing, but I decided I would just remake this video, partially because I spent my time reading this book, I want to get a review out of it, because I want to talk about it, and because I think it could be inspiring, because that kind of thing can just happen to content creators sometimes, and I just want to do my part to remake the video to show you that you can do it, because I was concerned. I didn't know if I could do it again. I do have my notes. I have returned the book back to the library, so I don't have a physical copy with me right now. But I do still have the original thumbnail because that was saved as a separate thing. So at least I have that, which I'm happy about because I liked the way that turned out. But yeah, I still had the notes, and it wasn't that long ago that I read the book, so I figured I could still do it. And I want to inspire other people too in case they go through a similar situation. So while it's not ideal, I don't mind doing it again, and it can be inspiring. I think usually deleting the video wouldn't have happened, but I had been filming a lot of videos like on the same day, but I can try to be more careful in the future. But either way, with a lot of these videos, it is just me talking, so I can redo them if needed. So enough of that, let's get started on my redo of this. I don't know if it'll be better than the original, but you'll never see the original, so you won't be able to have anything to compare it to. But I did want to mention that in this redo. So now we'll basically say what I said in the original. So I'm going to tell you what this book is about. Well, first I wanted to talk about the other R.L. Stine books I have read. So I never read any of R.L. Stine's books as a child and had never read any of his books up until last year. I never read the Goosebumps books. I know they're very popular, but I don't think I ever read them. Like, there are some books in elementary school especially that I remember trying to read, but maybe I didn't read the whole thing. But I don't think I ever tried to read a Goosebumps book. But last year I started reading them. So far the only two Goosebumps books I've read were The Cuckoo Clock of Doom and Welcome to Camp Nightmare. The Cuckoo Clock of Doom I thought was okay. I didn't think it was poorly written, so I definitely saw the author's potential. Just like the plot and things that happened in it weren't my favorite, but I still thought there were good things about it. When I read Welcome to Camp Nightmare, I thought that one was really good. So that's maybe considered one of the best Goosebumps books, I don't know, but I thought it was pretty good. Let me know if you have a favorite. But I really liked that one. It was one where the twist at the end makes you think of everything differently, kind of similar to how I felt about the book I'm talking about today, The Rich Girl. I wouldn't say that the twist and ending of that one shocked me as much, or that it made me think as much after reading the book back to everything that had happened in it, but it was similar. So yeah, from hearing about the books and having friends who liked Goosebumps, I started to read some, and I do plan on reading more of them. But I've also more recently been reading the Fear Street books, which are R.L. Stine's young adult books, so they feature teenage characters, and they're a bit more mature and more graphic. So this is the second Fear Street book I've read. In July, I read The Perfect Date, and that one I enjoyed overall. I thought it was pretty good. I found the main character a bit unlikable, but maybe that was the point. The ending was kind of crazy and didn't make much sense. I've heard that a lot about R.L. Stine's endings. Sometimes they don't make sense, or they're crazy, or there's some big twist, and sometimes I think they're good. Like Welcome to Camp Nightmare, I didn't mind that. I liked that ending. And some of the books, it's kind of like, what happened? I don't really understand. So I didn't love The Perfect Date. I didn't think it was like masterful literature, but I still thought it was well written, and I still enjoyed my time as I was reading it. And like the Goosebumps books, the Fear Street books aren't very long. I don't have the physical copy with me, but this book was like 140 pages, and it was like pretty small. The pages were smaller than books today, so it didn't take very long to read, and it's pretty simple to follow along with, which I enjoyed. So it's not a very big novel. I don't know if it'd even be considered a novel. It might technically be considered a novella, but I'll just be calling it a book / a story for now. So what is The Rich Girl about? The Rich Girl is about these two teenage girls named Sydney and Emma. Sydney is the main character. We follow her perspective in third person, and they are best friends. They work at a movie theater together. They come from pretty different backgrounds. Emma's family does not have a lot of money. Sydney's parents do. So Sydney's pretty rich, but she's not really bratty or entitled. Like, she works at a movie theater even though she doesn't have to because her parents want to teach her hard work and responsibility. So she is rich, yeah, but she's not unlikable. One day they are looking in the dumpster, trying to find something that Sydney dropped, and in the process, they find a duffel bag that is filled with a bunch of money, like, I think at least $100,000, and they're very excited about this, Emma especially, because she could really use the money because she needs a lot of things. She needs improvements to her house, the roof is leaking, her mom has had health issues, I think she needs a knee surgery, and so she could really use the money for that. But they're unsure of keeping it. Makes them a little nervous and paranoid, so they agree that they will hide the money someplace and see if they see any news about anyone looking for it, and if not, then they will keep it and spend it. Now, they were supposed to not tell anybody about it, but Sydney told her boyfriend Jason. Now, Emma doesn't really like Jason, and she doesn't really trust him, so she's not sure what he would do for that money. She fears he could even get violent for it. So that's what this book is about. It is about them basically finding the money, waiting until they feel that they can dig it back up, and the things that happen in between. It's a pretty simple plot, pretty easy to understand and follow along with. Personally, I was invested in the story. I was interested in seeing what would happen, and the Fear Street books are considered horror/thriller, I guess, so there's definitely that aspect to it. So some crazy things happen. It's not exactly pleasant. But because of that, I felt that it was interesting. And these books are fast-paced and they have short chapters. I think they get to the point. They tell you what you need to know. They did give some information about the characters and their backgrounds, but they don't really drag on with things. I think something happens in each chapter. It really progresses the story. Now, I will say that I don't think, from what I've read and what I may read in the future from R.L. Stine, that his books are the most in-depth or the most character-driven. They're very much about plot and things happening to the characters, which makes sense. I felt like with this book, I knew the characters enough. They were introduced, I learned some things about them, and I felt that they were more relatable in this one, definitely more likable, especially with the main character compared to the first 8. So these characters weren't awful. I didn't think that they were just completely one-dimensional. But this also just isn't a very long book in the first place, so I guess I got to know them well enough, but yeah, I don't expect to get to know them super well from this author's books, but I didn't feel that the characters were bad. There aren't very many characters in this book. It's mostly about those 3 characters, Sydney, Emma, and Jason, and I cared about what happened to the characters, especially the main character. You know, sometimes in books you may just not really care about what's happening to them, you may not care about them achieving their goals, but I cared. I sympathized with them. I think that books can teach us empathy, and I did feel some empathy reading this. I think that R.L. Stine's books that I've read so far are well written in general, but something specific I liked about this book was I felt like it did a good job at showing the main 2 characters' economic classes throughout the book. It didn't just mention them once and then never again, and you do see how it affects them. Like when they're at Emma's house, you see that there's a bucket in the corner of the room collecting water because the roof is leaking, and when Sydney's in her house, you hear about her going into her walk-in closet. So there was attention to detail with that, and it reminded you of their homes and their families and just how they lived. And I did feel that the characters had some defining repetitive habits and traits. I liked the mystery aspect of this, and this was definitely a book where you're not entirely sure who you can trust. So I think it's always fun to read a book where I'm trying to figure things out and seeing who I should suspect. I think there's definitely a very psychological component to this, where a lot of what the main character goes through, at least I felt like I could feel and understand what she was going through as she was going through it, even though I could not relate. And I think that was written quite well. I think it was very strong and visceral, so I could really feel a lot of the mental things going on and how that could become physical. And I felt that this book was realistic when it came to how the characters responded to some of the things that happened. If you've read this, you might know what I'm talking about. Like, mainly I'm referring to something that happened about halfway through the book. So yeah, I felt that I understood and strongly felt how the main character felt in this. So I enjoyed this, and now I have some points of discussion I want to bring up. So one of the things I wanted to mention is that I like that this book is nearly 30 years old. This particular book was published in 1997, and I just enjoy reading about time periods that I did not personally experience. But another thing regarding it being nearly 30 years old, I wanted to ask, especially for people who read a lot in the horror/thriller genre, and perhaps mystery as well. This is also young adult. But as I said, I felt that the plot for this one was pretty simple. It wasn't very complicated, and that wasn't an issue at all. It was very easy to follow along with. But I want to ask, for people who have read a lot of this type of genre, because I haven't, do you feel that those types of books nowadays are too complicated, perhaps? Maybe they're really convoluted and long, and maybe they've got too much going on. Maybe they're trying to be too shocking or original. I think it's interesting to think about and discuss how publishing trends have changed. And when it comes to horror/thriller books, do you prefer older or newer ones, and why? I'm sure there's been a difference in how they are now versus how they were 30 years ago and even before that. So I want to hear what you've noticed, if you have any knowledge and experience with that. And you can let me know if you think that horror books today are too crazy and over the top, or do you like that they're even crazier now and that they have more complicated or wild plots. The other discussion point I wanted to mention is, now yes, I don't have the physical copy with me, but it's a pretty thin book. Like I said, only about 140 pages. And I'm fine with it. I'm fine with the book being thin if that's all the author has to say, if that's the story. I think it can still be a great story. You can still get a lot in over 100 pages. But I think that maybe nowadays it might seem that, like I said, maybe just books in general are often longer, or so I've heard and kind of noticed myself. And I think maybe to make it thicker, people might like the look of that more. And of course, more money can be made from that. But I think maybe it also might just look more visually appealing to a lot of people if the book is bigger. Now, I personally don't do things for aesthetics, but I can understand how someone could, especially if it's a product. Maybe when it comes to booktube especially, people just like having large books in their thumbnails, especially if it's a book they read and they're talking about it, because maybe it just makes them feel good that they read a long book, and I can understand that. I think I prefer in my thumbnails the look of bigger books compared to thinner books, but you can let me know your thoughts on that as well. So how I felt about the ending of this book. I thought it was interesting. Some things that happened in the book I kind of suspected and saw coming, but some things I did not. And there was never a point where I was like 100% certain, like, this is what's happening, this is who you can't trust, and so on. Like, I didn't have a certain definitive guess at any point. So the ending was interesting. I think I liked the ending of this one more than The Perfect Date. This one, to me, made a lot more sense. Things were explained, and it just made more sense to me. And though I feel that R.L. Stine's books are usually just meant to be entertaining, and like I said, they're not the most character-driven books I've seen, I do feel like this book has some depth and meaning to it, because I think that it is about money and how it affects people and what people are willing to do for it, which I think is very much still relevant today and will probably always be relevant. So I do think that was interesting. Like, I think it's fine if it's just an entertaining, fun story, but I liked that this book was sort of something that could make you think as well, and really represented something in society. Now, although this video is a spoiler-free review, if you have read this book and you want to discuss spoilers, the ending, or anything about this book, we absolutely can do that. I would just suggest that you say that your comment is going to contain spoilers, maybe have it so that people gotta click read more in order to see the spoiler you're going to say, and that applies to any of my videos, so we can absolutely discuss that. Now I wanted to talk about how I felt about this book in comparison to The Perfect Date. I'm not quite sure which one I liked more. I think maybe this one, though, that's where I'm leaning towards. Both of them I gave 4 stars. I liked this book. I enjoyed it while I was reading it. For The Perfect Date, I didn't feel that the ending ruined it for me, but I guess I enjoyed it less because of that and by the ending. This one, though, I didn't really feel that way. I don't know if I'll ever give a Fear Street book 5 stars, but my guess is if I read enough, I probably will. It's not uncommon for me to give a book 5 stars, but I don't give them out to just anybody. And I have given a Goosebumps book 5 stars, but that's different. Between Fear Street and Goosebumps, which one do I like more? Maybe Fear Street. I think I do really like middle grade, but I really like young adult as well. Maybe I can relate a bit more to the young adult books and they can get a bit more edgy and intense. So far, maybe I like the Fear Street books more. I do plan on reading more Fear Street books in the future. There is at least one more in my library that I want to read. This one and The Perfect Date I just checked out because my library system had them available. Sadly, they don't have a whole lot. I'm guessing maybe they used to have more, but I know that if books don't get checked out for a while, they can get removed from the system. But there is at least one more Fear Street book from the library that I want to check out at some point, and I look forward to reading that. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to say that I liked this more than The Perfect Date, so saying it here isn't really official, but I'm going to say that yeah, maybe I did. Overall, I did enjoy this book. I enjoyed my time reading it. I enjoyed the experience. Like I said, it was very psychological, so that was pretty interesting and kind of intense, but it wasn't too terrifying for me, but that depends on who's reading it. So I'm not going to say like this book isn't too terrifying or too much. It depends on the person. It is also interesting to me to see how far the author will go in the Fear Street books because they can be more mature. In my experience with them, they don't have like stronger language really, if any at all. If there was any, it was very mild, or there wasn't any. It's mostly just more mature when it comes to violence. So I thought this book was pretty good. Not the most amazing literary masterpiece out there, not that every book has to be, but it was a fun, enjoyable read. And if you've read this book or any other Fear Street books or any other books by R.L. Stine, I'd love to hear your thoughts and discuss them with you. Thank you for watching.